Get ready for the next battle.
Hello and welcome to another edition of PlayStation All-Stars Battle Royale history, where today we'll be taking a look at possibly the only third-party addition to the roster who wasn't controversial, Heihachi Mishima from the major fighting game series Tekken. After the fighting game market was dominated by 2D fighting games such as Street Fighter, Tekken was one of two major fighting games that arrived in the mid-90s, which allowed movement in 3D space along with Sega's Virtua Fighter. What made Tekken unique was its emphasis on slow, heavy fighting with a focus on sidestepping and assigning 4 buttons to each fighter's 4 limbs, i.e. 2 arms, 2 legs. Originally an arcade title, Tekken was ported as a PlayStation title in 1995, and the console and the series have had a strong relationship ever since, with PlayStation consoles getting exclusive home editions of the games up until Tekken 6, which was shared with the Xbox. The fighters were varied, ranging from very serious practitioners of various fighting styles ranging from boxing to street brawling to taekwondo, to fighters suspiciously similar to martial arts movie stars. Then things gradually got sillier, bringing in cute Asian schoolgirls and showy wrestler types, and that's even before you get to the robots, the bears, the kangaroos, the magical samurai warriors from another dimension, and the freaking demons. So out of all of this, why Heihachi Mishima? Well, he was one of only 4 fighters to have appeared in every single Tekken game to date, and his role in Tekken's somewhat loose plot is pretty important, especially as he was the organizer of
the King of Iron Fist Tournament
and everything, so those seem like pretty damn good reasons. The plot centered on
the King of Iron Fist Tournament
and also Heihachi's corporate interests and his ongoing feud with his wacky family. After throwing his son Kazuya off a cliff, as you do, Kazuya gained dark magical powers thanks to his devil gene. Wishing to enhance the devil gene, Heihachi organized
the King of Iron Fist Tournament
and used his Mishima Zaibatsu to research into the devil gene and find out why he didn't get it, because he wanted demonic powers too. This spawned an ongoing feud within the Mishima family involving Heihachi, his son, his grandson, some assorted cousins and illegitimate children, and a demonic great-grandpa, and this feud pretty much formed the central plot of the Tekken games. Oh, and Heihachi also never dies simply because he's too stubborn to do so. No, really. So basically what looks like a very serious, semi-realistic fighting game working hard to simulate real martial arts is in actual fact a very silly, very over-the-top fighting game with flashy moves and fighting kangaroos, and it's probably this silliness combined with the tight controls that made it such a success. So it stands to reason that a fighting game bringing together characters from PlayStation history would bring forward a major player from a hugely successful fighting game franchise with a strong association with the console. But how did they adapt Heihachi's Tekken fighting style to PlayStation All-Stars? Let's take a look, shall we? In Tekken games, square and triangle controlled arms, which meant punches, and one of Heihachi's most basic moves was the flash punch combo, where he punched twice with his left fist and followed these punches up with a powerful right jab. Naturally, this was a very easy move to perform, since it just involved pressing the left punch twice, followed by the right punch. Tekken was also very fond of juggling, which meant launching your opponent into the air and following up quickly with combos before they hit the ground. One of Heihachi's methods of launching opponents was the Demon Uppercut, which was a very powerful uppercut move performed by running towards your opponent and pressing the right punch button. One powerful punch move Heihachi could employ as well was the Iron Hand, which involved him focusing energy into his hand and pushing it forwards forcefully, which often knocked opponents back. It was performed by doing a quarter rotation of the D-pad and pressing the right punch. A move added later to the Tekken games was the Demon Wings move, which saw Heihachi perform a quick spin before punching outwards with both fists. This involved crouching and pressing both punch buttons at once. These are all of Heihachi's square moves in PlayStation All-Stars, since square seems to have been assigned to punch moves. His basic flash punch is here as expected, the Demon Uppercut continues to be useful at launching opponents, Iron Hand is a semi-useful move to pull out if you need something quick and powerful, and Demon Wings has become slightly more useful due to the possibility of having multiple opponents, and the Dual Fist can catch opponents on both sides, which is handy. Cross and circle in Tekken were reserved for legs, which of course meant kicks and stomps and other assorted leg moves. One of Heihachi's basic kicks was a spinning roundhouse kick, where he would spin around quickly swinging his right leg out. This required simply pressing the circle button for a right leg kick. No, really, that was all. Expanding on these spinny kicky shenanigans was the Hell Axle move, where Heihachi jumped forward spinning both of his legs around. He would launch himself forwards with his left leg extended, then spin around on contact to bring his right leg around before landing again. It was a pretty nice move. A relatively new addition to Heihachi's moveset in the series was the Jichinsai move, which was basically a huge stomp move, where Heihachi was swinging his leg upwards before slamming it down onto his opponent. In PlayStation All-Stars, triangle has been assigned for Heihachi's kick moves, with all three of these becoming his grounded kicks. Spinning roundhouse is good for knocking opponents away, while Hell Axel is a great mini combo, while Jichinsai is only really good for slamming opponents to the ground. Tekken was mostly a ground-based fighting game with very few aerial options. Generally though, you could always perform quick moves in the air whenever you jumped. Heihachi had two different punches when he jumped, which were a palm strike on the square button and a slam punch on triangle, which weren't always useful, but they were there. Both of these punch moves are aerial moves for Heihachi in PlayStation All-Stars, although his palm strike can now be followed up with a second strike. He also retains his downwards hammer punch move. In terms of aerial kicks, Heihachi had a fairly useful rising kick when he jumped, where he swung his leg directly upwards, which was great for catching opponents after launching them. He also had a move called the Wind Slicer, which was basically an aerial roundhouse kick. These felt a little more useful than the punches due to their greater range. Both of these moves are also in PlayStation All-Stars. The Wind Slicer is now simply a way to deal with aerial opponents, while the Rising Toe Kick retains its ability to juggle. One of the defining aspects of Tekken was the stance change system. Every character was capable of moving into new stances, which altered the kinds of moves that they could perform. One of Heihachi's stances was the Wave Dash, where he would perform a quick dash forwards by a step. It was tricky to pull off, but it could be chained into other moves. The first of these was the Winged God Fist, which was essentially a more powerful version of the Demon Uppercut. In this move, Heihachi would store up power in his fist as he performed the Wave Dash and then release it all in an uppercut, which made sparks fly. The Wave Dash also chained into the Spinning Demon, where Heihachi spun on one foot and swung his other leg out. Typically, he would spin 3 times before moving into a Tsunami Kick, which was an upwards kick followed closely by a downward swing. The Spinning Demon could also be chained into a Wind God Fist by switching to the punch button. The Wave Dash is its own move in PlayStation All-Stars and is significantly easier to perform. Just like the original counterpart, it can also switch into the Wind God Fist and the Spinning Demon, which can continue to be chained into the Tsunami Kick as before. Another stance for Heihachi introduced later in the series was the Raijin, where Heihachi would slam his foot onto the ground and lower himself into a wide crouching position. By doing this, follow-up moves would be a little more powerful and unblockable. It was a little tricky pulling this off because the Raijin setup was obvious and easily interruptible, but it was nice to have. In its earlier appearances, Heihachi visibly charged up, but its most recent appearance is a little quicker but could be chained into a charged punch. The Raijin makes its way into PlayStation All-Stars as well, where it allows Heihachi to charge up, making his next move as well as AP orbs give him triple the AP, which is pretty nice. It also leads into a powerful pulverizer move too, just like can be done in the original games. Every character in Tekken had some more complex moves that were context specific or had to be performed very quickly in order for them to register. One of these was the Demon Scissors, which required you to press both kick buttons in very quick succession, but not simultaneously. Doing this successfully resulted in Heihachi doing a flip, slamming his feet down onto his opponent. This was added as a downwards aerial kick for Heihachi in All-Stars, although missing with this move results in Heihachi hitting the ground painfully and becoming vulnerable, so best to use it sparingly. One classic Heihachi move was a move called Demon Breath, which saw Heihachi placing his palms out in front of him with a little stomp. It looked pretty weedy on its own, but performing it as an opponent attacked gave Heihachi a charged block move that caused damage to his opponent instead, making it a fairly useful counter. Actual counter moves came in later to the Tekken series, and Heihachi's counter was a move called Heaven's Wrath. Performing this in isolation saw Heihachi merely waving his arms around. However, performing it as an opponent attacked you resulted in him grabbing his opponent's arm or leg and then kicking them away, shutting down their combo. Its major disadvantage, however, was that it did cause some damage to Heihachi himself. Both of these moves were combined in PlayStation All-Stars. Heihachi retains Heaven's Wrath as a counter, only now he merely knocks opponents away instead of grabbing them. However, switching to a punch quickly out of the counter causes him to perform the Demon Breath move, which remains a powerful knockback move if you can execute it properly. As in all fighting games, throws were useful in Tekken for dealing with opponents who were very block happy. Every character had 2 basic throws that could be performed by pressing a simultaneous kick and punch button. One of these basic throws for Heihachi was the Jumping Powerbomb, where Heihachi would grab his opponent, jump into the air and then slam his opponent down. But every character had more complex special throws available to them as well. For Heihachi, one of these was the Stone Head throw, As you would expect with a name like that, this involved him grabbing his opponent and then forcefully headbutting them away. Both of these throws made it into PlayStation All-Stars as, well, throws, with the power bomb becoming his up throw and the stone head becoming his side throw. But what about his down throw? Well, this one's trickier, but I believe that it's based on a throw introduced to Heihachi's moveset later in the Tekken series called Broken Toy. In this move, Heihachi would pick up his opponent and then fling them away, slamming them onto the ground. This is the possible inspiration for his All-Stars down throw, but they seem to have added a Chichinsai for good measure to ensure the opponent stays down. So that's all his basic moves, so let's talk mini-games. In the PlayStation version of Tekken 3, Namco introduced a couple of silly extra modes to the game. One of these was Tekken Ball, which was volleyball via a fighting game engine. The idea was to knock a beach ball about to prevent it from hitting the ground. You did this by attacking the ball with various moves, making sure it stayed airborne, or else you would take damage. You could also hit the ball with powerful moves to charge it up, and if this hit your opponent, it also caused damage. In the game after that, Tekken Tag Tournament, bowling was introduced. Rather than a variation on fighting mechanics like Tekken Ball, this was a full-on bowling simulator. Why did they do this? I don't know, but they did. There it is. You're seeing it right now. Bowling. Yeah. Bowling. So this is why Heihachi chucks a bowling pin in PlayStation All-Stars. No, that's it. It's a reference to Tekken Tag Tournament's bowling mode. I honestly have no other explanation besides that. Sometimes the pin will be replaced with a beach ball. That's a reference to Tekken Ball. And you can charge up the ball in a similar manner to the original mode. No, I don't know either. Let's leave it at that and take a look at the recap montage.
Level 1!
Every character in Tekken had an incredibly powerful but incredibly impractical charged move, guaranteed to do a ton of damage but far from guaranteed to actually hit because of a long build-up time. Heihachi's utterly impractical but incredibly powerful move was the Lightning Hammer, where he charged himself up and stomped forward swinging his fist down. It was slow, but it took off a huge chunk of his opponent's life bar. Because of its sheer power, this is Heihachi's Level 1 Super in PlayStation All-Stars. This time the move is much faster, possibly because the move has already been charged up using AP orbs. At least that's the best explanation I've got.
Level 2!
Traditionally in Tekken games, you fought alone. It was your character against the world, one-on-one. But in the Tekken Tag Tournament games, this was no longer the case, and you could bring along a buddy that you could tag in and help you out with what was known as a tag combo or a tag assault, and you could simply switch between the two. Now bear that in mind. Bear in mind. That's funny, because now we have to talk about a bear. This is Kuma. He's a bear. He's also Heihachi's personal bodyguard. So, pretty normal. He was also a playable character. Now I'm not going to go too in-depth with his moves, but generally they were a mix of Heihachi's karate and, well, the kind of attacks you'd expect a bear to have, with claws and rolls and farting. Now let's put these two together. What do you have? Heihachi's Level 2 in PlayStation All-Stars, where Kuma is called out and starts running about, chasing after Heihachi's opponents while you can still run about as Heihachi and fight together. This joint fighting seems to be a reference to the tag tournament gameplay, specifically the tag assault mechanic, which allowed both fighters to be on stage at the same time for extended combos. However, in this case your fighters would both be under your control, whereas Kuma in All-Stars is CPU controlled to make life easier. Kuma retains many of his moves, with most of his attacks being slams or rolls, slashing with his claws, or farting. Let's move on.
Level 3!
So, I mentioned that the feud within the Mishima family fueled much of the plot of the Tekken games, as loosely constructed as they were. Well, in Tekken 5, this feud reached a new level of ridiculousness when Heihachi was supposedly killed. However, it turns out that he was actually fine, but slightly annoyed at having missiles chucked at his face. which is understandable. So Heihachi decided to take revenge. After battling his way through the tournament and taking down members of his family, including his father, the demonic hell being Jinpachi, Heihachi came up with a sensible, rational way to end the feud once and for all. He shot them into space, of course.
30, 29, 28, 27, 26, 25, 24, 23, 22, 21, 20, 19, 18, 17, 16, 15, 14, 13, 12, 11, 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, ignition.
And this is Heihachi's level 3 super in PlayStation All-Stars for some reason. Upon activating the super, it cuts to a scene where Heihachi has managed to strap all of his opponents to a rocket which then launches and kills everyone. So now that I've got another video wiped away from my to-do list, I'll see you soon with the next video. Stay tuned.